Giant's Causeway on the coast of Northern Ireland is one of the UK's outstanding natural features. Its steep cliffs and deep bays form a UNESCO World Heritage.
For millions of years, the black stones of the North Atlantic coast stood in silence. They rose from ancient fire, locked into near-perfect columns, so precise that generations of visitors struggled to believe they were made by nature at all. At Giant's Causeway, the line between geology and legend has always been thin. On one side stands science, lava, cooling, contraction, time. On the other stands myth, giants, footsteps, unfinished roads to Scotland, and the unsettling idea that some places remember stories older than history. Then the internet did what it does best. It took 11 seconds of footage and turned wonder into suspicion. A stone face appears to move. A seam opens where no seam should exist. Darkness waits behind it. Within hours, the clip is no longer just a curiosity. It becomes a theory. Then an allegation. Then a story about hidden chambers, impossible heat signatures, sealed figures in rock, and officials supposedly desperate to keep the public away. That is where the real documentary begins. Because the tension here is not merely between believers and skeptics. It is between two kinds of authority. One is ancient, physical, measurable. The rock itself, studied for centuries, mapped by geologists, protected as a World Heritage Site. The other is modern and volatile, viral certainty, algorithmic storytelling, the emotional force of a mystery that feels more satisfying than an explanation. So the question is no longer whether Giant's Causeway looks impossible. It does. The question is far more dangerous than that. When a place already born from myth collides with digital illusion, how can anyone tell where the legend ends and where the lie begins? The verified history of Giant's Causeway is extraordinary enough without invention. Giant's Causeway lies on the north coast of County Antrim in Northern Ireland and is internationally recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. UNESCO describes it as an exposure of around 40,000 regularly shaped polygonal basalt columns, celebrated both for exceptional natural beauty and for its importance in understanding Earth's geological history. The site has been a visitor attraction for at least 300 years and is regarded as one of Northern Ireland's defining natural landmarks. Its origin is geological, not architectural. The British Geological Survey and the USGS both describe the formation as a product of volcanic activity associated with the opening of the North Atlantic around 60 to 63 million years ago. Lava flooded the landscape, pooled deeply in places, then cooled slowly and evenly enough for contraction cracks to propagate through the rock, producing the famous columns. What now appears almost designed was created by heat, pressure, cooling rate, and erosion over immense spans of time. The site is also carefully managed. UNESCO notes legal protections, national trust stewardship, erosion monitoring, path maintenance, and environmental safeguards. In other words, Giant's Causeway is not some forgotten edge of the world. It is one of the most observed and visited geologic sites in the British Isles. There is little serious academic debate over whether the columns are natural. On that point, geology is overwhelmingly settled. The next scholarly interest lies in details. The exact cooling environment, how stress fields produced such regular jointing, how the lava lake behaved, and how later erosion exposed the formation so dramatically. Researchers continue refining the mechanism, not overturning it. There is also long-running cultural debate over how the site should be interpreted in public memory. Some presentations emphasize scientific explanation. Others foreground folklore, especially the legend of Finn McCool, or Fionn Mac Cumhail, who supposedly built the causeway toward Scotland. The National Trust itself presents both geology and legend side by side, not as equivalent truth claims, but as part of the site's layered identity. This is where the internet enters. Speculative claims surrounding hidden doors, artificial chambers, giant beings, or suppressed findings are not part of the accepted archaeological or geological record. No authoritative source from UNESCO, the National Trust, BGS or USGS, supports the existence of a moving basalt doorway or a concealed inhabited chamber inside the causeway cliffs. The most viral door-opening footage tied to the site was later identified by Reuters as material from a National Trust promotional campaign released in 2015. That matters, because once a place is already famous for looking impossible, speculation does not need much evidence. It only needs the right image. And Giant's Causeway offers exactly the kind of image that destabilizes certainty. The columns are geometric. The cliffs are layered with almost theatrical precision. Even sober observers, standing on the black hexagons beside the Atlantic, have admitted the place looks engineered. That visual tension is real. It is one reason the site has inspired legends for centuries and continues to attract filmmakers, travel channels, and mystery content creators now. Then came the anomaly that would feed the algorithm. A clip in which part of the rock face appears to open like a hidden doorway. To a viewer encountering it cold, the imagery is devastatingly effective. The illusion works because the setting already looks unnatural. The mind fills in the rest. If the columns look carved, maybe they were carved. If they look fitted, maybe they conceal something. If one section seems to move, perhaps the entire scientific story is incomplete. This is the curiosity gap at the center of the mystery. Not because the geology is weak, but because the human appetite for revelation is stronger than patience. The online versions of the story grow darker with each retelling. An electrician becomes an accidental witness. A drone becomes a truth machine. Geologists become reluctant whistleblowers. Government barriers become proof of suppression. Every ordinary feature of site management begins to glow with sinister meaning. Routine safety closures become sealed perimeters. Scientific caution becomes panic. Absence of evidence becomes evidence of removal. This is how modern myths are built, not from stone, but from escalation. And yet the anomaly is still useful, because even false mysteries reveal something true. They show how authority is negotiated in public. They show how quickly a beautiful site can become a stage for speculative history, institutional distrust, and digital folklore. They show that in the age of viral narrative, a natural wonder no longer belongs only to geology. It belongs to interpretation. So the question becomes, what happens when the image is investigated instead of merely shared? The breakthrough is not a hidden chamber. It is context. Reuters traced the viral door-opening claim back to a promotional campaign commissioned by the National Trust in 2015. According to the fact-check, the clip was part of a marketing effort tied to the hashtag #NTSleepingGiant. Visitors at the time were even given maps and clues to find the cave featured in the campaign. In other words, the most influential visual evidence behind the modern mystery was not leaked surveillance, secret government footage, or a drone operator stumbling onto classified archaeology. It was promotional storytelling. That discovery changes the entire frame. Suddenly, the viral narrative is no longer a revelation about ancient beings. It becomes a case study in how commercial myth-making, folklore branding, and platform-driven exaggeration can merge into a convincing false history. This is also where AI enters the conversation realistically. If investigators had access to original video files, AI-assisted analysis could help compare compression artifacts, identify editing seams, detect synthesized motion patterns, and match visual elements across known promotional releases. AI could also cluster reposted versions of the clip, reconstruct upload histories, and identify how language changed as the story spread from playful folklore to quasi-documentary certainty. But AI cannot do magic. It cannot authenticate a fantasy simply because the data feels eerie. It cannot infer a subterranean civilization from a manipulated clip. It cannot distinguish between a brilliant campaign and a genuine anomaly unless it is grounded in verified source material, metadata, and independent corroboration. In other words, AI can reveal patterns. It cannot replace evidence, and that may be the most important breakthrough of all. Because the real story here is not that science failed to explain a mystery. It is that storytelling became so persuasive that many viewers stopped asking whether the mystery had been manufactured in the first place. But a debunked clip does not end the mystery. It deepens it in a different direction, because now the stakes are no longer geological, they are cultural. Why did so many people want the story to be true? Part of the answer lies in the atmosphere of the present. Public trust in institutions is brittle. Official statements are often received not as clarification, but as provocation. When authorities say a story is false, many viewers now hear confirmation that it matters. And when a site already carries mythic weight, even a correction can feel like part of the legend. Expert disagreement, in this case, does not really concern basalt columns. It concerns interpretation and communication. Geologists tend to speak in slow, careful language. Viral storytellers do not. Scientists say, consistent with known volcanic processes. A narrator on a mystery channel says, what they found changes everything. The second sentence travels farther, faster, and with more emotional force. That asymmetry is one of the central tensions of the digital age. Institutional hesitation also plays a role. though not necessarily in the sinister way conspiratorial retellings suggest. Heritage organizations often use folklore to engage visitors. Tourism campaigns rely on enchantment. Promotional ambiguity can be effective marketing. But once a staged mystery escapes its original frame, it can be repurposed by channels seeking clicks, outrage, or revelation. What began as playful myth can harden into alleged evidence. Scientific caution then appears weak against cinematic certainty. And yet caution is exactly what this story demands. There is no verified geological evidence of a movable stone door at Giant's Causeway. There is no confirmed chamber of giant figures. There are no credible published findings about biological heat signatures inside 60-million-year-old basalt at the site. There is, however, a real phenomenon worth taking seriously: the ease with which fiction can borrow the authority of documentary form. That is where the narrative becomes unsettling again. Because when viewers can no longer distinguish between atmospheric reconstruction, promotional fantasy, and source-based reporting, every cliff becomes a possible cover-up, every ranger a possible gatekeeper, every safety barrier a symbol of forbidden knowledge. Not because the world is hiding more secrets than before, but because the image economy now rewards that feeling. At least 3 interpretations remain on the table. The conventional explanation is also the strongest. Giant's Causeway is a natural volcanic formation created roughly 60 million years ago through lava emplacement, cooling, contraction cracking, and later erosion. The door imagery associated with the site comes from staged or promotional material amplified online and detached from its original context. In this view, the mystery is not ancient architecture but modern media literacy. The alternative theory does not have confirmed evidence, but it persists because of the site's appearance and mythology. In this interpretation, the regularity of the columns, the folklore of giants, and the recurring use of the site in staged, mysterious imagery hint that perhaps official explanations are incomplete. Adherents may not claim certainty, but they argue that the site's visual geometry and enduring legends keep open the emotional possibility of hidden structures, ritual use, or lost cultural meanings, not yet fully appreciated. As history shows, some discoveries have indeed begun with places dismissed as myth. That is why such theories attract attention. The desire is not merely to believe in giants. It is to believe that history still contains doors not yet opened. The skeptical position goes further than conventional geology. It argues that the entire viral ecosystem around these stories is engineered to exploit cognitive weakness. From this perspective, mystery channels, promotional campaigns, and suggestive editing do not just blur fact and folklore accidentally. They monetize the blur. The site itself becomes raw material for narrative extraction. Skeptics would say the important hidden chamber is not in the cliff. It is in the recommendation algorithm. That position may sound cold, but it explains something the other two cannot. Why the most dramatic claims tend to arrive with cinematic thumbnails, anonymous experts, vanishing evidence, and impossible certainty. Each interpretation tells a different truth about human beings. One trusts rock, one trusts possibility, one trusts motive. And the audience must decide which is most persuasive. Why does this matter? Because Giant's Causeway sits at the exact intersection where humans are most vulnerable to wonder. It is old enough to humble civilization, beautiful enough to invite myth, strange enough to challenge intuition. The site reminds observers that nature can produce forms so precise they look intentional, and that the human mind is deeply uncomfortable with beauty that has no author. So it invents one: a giant, a lost race, engineers before history, a sealed chamber, a sleeping intelligence. In that sense, the viral stone door story is not just misinformation. It is an updated myth, born in the same psychological territory that once produced Finn McCool. The difference is that ancient storytellers knew they were telling legends. Modern audiences are often told they are receiving evidence. That is a profound shift. It changes how people relate to truth itself. There is also something poignant here. The hunger behind these stories is not always foolish. Sometimes it reflects a real spiritual dissatisfaction with flat explanations and optimized feeds. People want the world to feel larger than schedules, debts, and notifications. They want a coast in Northern Ireland to contain a secret older than language. They want the cliff to open because they want reality to still be capable of surprise. And yet the real Giant's Causeway already is surprising. 60-million-year-old lava. Tens of thousands of basalt columns. A landscape shaped by planetary rupture, slow cooling, ice, sea, and time. A place where folklore and geology have coexisted for centuries without needing to destroy one another. Perhaps that is the deeper lesson. Wonder does not need fabrication. Mystery does not require deception. And history does not become more sacred when falsehood is poured into its cracks. Still, the questions remain. Not about hidden beings in basalt, but about the future of collective belief. In a world where cinematic fiction can wear the costume of documentary truth, how will the next generation learn to separate enchantment from evidence without losing the capacity for awe? That may be the real anomaly now, not the stones. Us. The cliffs at Giant's Causeway are still there tonight, facing the Atlantic exactly as they have for ages beyond memory. The columns still look impossible. The legends still cling to the wind. And somewhere online, the stone door is probably opening again for another viewer who has never seen the correction. So the final unresolved question is not whether something ancient is hiding behind the rock. It is whether modern audiences still know how to face mystery without surrendering truth. Because if a place this famous, this studied, and this protected can be pulled back into myth by 11 seconds of imagery, then the next hidden door may not open in a cliff face at all. It may open in the mind. And once it does, what enters is not always wonder. Sometimes it is belief without evidence.